Mr. Mtiani, thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this is really a mammoth task because there are so many different pieces of legislation around marriage, from customary marriages to old homeland marriage acts, and there's a lot that needs to be dealt with in terms of religious and cultural practice around marriage. Let's start with, I think, a really critical issue, particularly on Youth Day, is that children under the age of 18 are still, under certain circumstances, allowed to marry, which strikes me as extremely problematic. Is the bill seeking to absolutely outlaw this practice?
No, good evening to you, Sally, and good evening to your viewers. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to talk to this very important issue. Maybe let me just correct one thing. It's not yet a bill. We are at a stage where we have developed a green paper. A green paper basically is a discussion paper that talks to critical issues that, as a department, as we're engaging with various stakeholders, we've put together those issues into a draft paper for discussion. But getting to the issue that you've just mentioned right now, Sally, it's unfortunate that the current law, marriage law, it does allow children who are younger than 18, as young as 16 years, to get married. And we've been engaging with stakeholders. Also, the Children's Act, when it speaks about the age of majority, talks about 18 years. So in looking at various legislation, we've come to a conclusion. And luckily, when we're engaging with all stakeholders, traditional leaders, religious leaders, academics, family law practitioners, they all agree with us that the age of majority need to be aligned even on our marriage law, which means when we get to drafting of the legislation, the new legislation would say there is no more child marriages in South Africa.
All right, so it's good that there is at least one aspect of this green paper where you already have clear agreement, because I would imagine that there are lots of other contentious issues, particularly when someone's religious belief clashes with perhaps what the Constitution says about we're all equal under the law regardless of our sexual orientation. I want to focus in on the rights of women, because we have seen that in terms of property rights and some cultural marriages, some religious marriages as well, the rights are unequal. Some things have been corrected, others have not. Is this going to this green paper, once it passes through Parliament, becomes a bill, then a law, hopefully by 2024, I think is the deadline you set? Is this
That's
going
correct.
to be retrospective, so that women who might have been disadvantaged under an old law of marriage can actually claim a right?
Look, Sally, already the courts have already started to do that, to correct the imbalances of the past. If you look at recently, in December, the courts ruled that all Muslim marriages must be recognized in South Africa as legal marriages. The courts also ruled last year to say those who were married under the Homeland's legislation, marriage legislation, which said all marriages were out of community of property. The court have said that needs to be corrected. Marriages should be in community of property, and in that way, it will protect those women who were part of those marriages. So already, even before we draft the legislation, there is jurisprudence in this issue saying we need to correct injustice of the past.
All right, well, that is good to hear. Let's talk about the issue of polyandry, which of course has been a really controversial one, which is the right...
I knew it was going to come. Yes.
We had to go there. It's the right of a woman to have more than one spouse. Of course, polygamy, the right of a man to take more than one wife, is allowed. So the current laws are clearly archaic, I have to say it. You know, surely what is sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander, but I know that you've had a lot of input and a lot of pushback on this issue of polyandry. So talk to me about some of the feedback you've been getting around this issue, and whether you're likely to get some sort of consensus, because I know one of the proposals with the Green Paper is to go towards a place of gender neutrality.
Look, no, thank you so much for Sally. Basically, we've been having quite a number of engagements. Our DG Makode has been leading various engagement with stakeholders. We started on the 2nd of June, where we started to engage with stakeholders in our provinces. Look, generally, the Green Paper has received a lot of support. There is this one issue where the majority of people in our engagement have really not welcomed it, the issue of polyandry. And as we've stated on the document already, these are the issues that were raised by stakeholders. So very few in our engagements are supporting polyandry, but these other proposals that are here on the paper, they are really getting support. In our last meeting yesterday, with religious leaders, there was support for polyandry too. To our surprise, there was a panel member who actually said there's actually nothing wrong with polyandry. But look, we are still engaging with various stakeholders. What we've put out on the Green Paper is based on 3 principles. The principle of non-discrimination, the principle of equality, the principle of saying everyone must be treated as a human being. We all have our human dignity. So those are the 3 principles that must apply across, whether you're a female or male or you are a non-binary person. Non-binary person is someone who does not identify as a male or a female. Those people, their rights are human rights as well. So that's where we are right now. But what we're going to count on for us to move on is what now is the public saying. If the public is saying we need polyandry, that is what public will get. But if public says, no, this is not the concept that is relevant for us as this country, it's not going to fly. That is how...
Yeah. But if you want to move to a place of gender neutrality, bearing in mind that you have non-binary people, surely it fits the bill or the Green Paper to talk in gender neutral terms, because then shouldn't the right for one person to take multiple partners or for people to be joined in a multiple partnership, regardless of your sex, your gender or your sexual orientation, isn't really that what the bill should be looking to enshrine?
You're quite right. Well, you see, unfortunately, as government, what we do must be based on the Constitution. So I cannot come here and argue against the Constitution. However, over and above the Constitution is the issue of practice. Are these things being practiced in our community? If there is a community, for instance, there was a time when polygamy, in this instance, polygyny, where one man takes more wives. There was a time when it was a taboo, when it was not allowed. In fact, in other countries, still a taboo. But there is a community that came out and said, no, this is our culture, this is how we live. And as a result, in 1998, we then have a law that recognizes customary marriages. So if there is a community in South Africa that says, this is how we live, and this is what we want, and it is our right in terms of the Constitution, the states may not be in a better position to say no to that. But the court, it's basically what we do at our level. We draft something that must meet the constitutional requirement. If it doesn't meet it, the court would definitely say to you, no, go back. This is not constitutional.
It's absolutely fascinating, and I do think that it's something that I'm really glad we've discussed. Thank you so much, Sihle Mtiyani, Chief Director of Policy at the Department of Home Affairs, and they have a green paper on marriages, but there are so many fascinating issues. It is a chance, if you want to weigh in on this really important issue, you have until the end of June to write a submission and say, well, I would like to take 3 wives as a woman, for example. You know, who knows? Let's open it all up for discussion. Let's get it right. There are so many different pieces of legislation. It's time to streamline it all.